Thank you for hanging around for our special announcement. We just recently signed an agreement with American Stories Entertainment, and we're going to be publishing a new show, producing a new show called Fortress, focused on fortifying your home as well as your family. I'm joined by Rick from Land of Land, one of our premier sponsors, and Bob from
Chris.
American Stories Entertainment, CEO and founder. So before we get into Fortress, Rick, just for the benefit of the people in our audience who aren't familiar with you and Land of Land, give us the elevator speech.
Land of Land is America's premier land wholesaler. We own more than 2,500 individual properties within the United States, covering 17 states and about 70 different counties. We make land ownership very easy for people, and sometimes can transfer ownership via credit card for under $1,000 within hours, not even one day. You can have a copy of a recorded deed. Uh,
Wow.
we believe we serve a lot of needs, ranging from those seeking to hedge against what we believe is inevitable inflation in our country. We feel that we can provide people the pride of land ownership, a source of wealth over generations. And we think that we can help people find a place to go for vacations for their families, and also have a place to go should things like civil unrest occur or diseases. Just look at the situation in Venezuela now. If you want to have a place to go, should unfortunate circumstances arise, look at Land of Land. We'd be happy to help you.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I'm going to put a link down below in the description because you joined us on a video for bug out options. 83% of Americans live in cities. The prospect of leaving the city and living off the land is like slim to none, right? In 1929, when the market crashed, within 2 months, spotting a deer was front page news on the newspapers because the land was stripped of all edible animals, basically. And most people can't afford initially, at least the investment of a second home or a second property, but you make it affordable for them. And then it's kind of like eating an elephant, right? You can do one bite at a time, buy the land, maybe put a trailer on it, and just keep investing as you've got money.
We've purchased and sold more than 10,000 individual properties, and our average ticket, our average invoice is under $5,000. So
Wow.
we've got tremendous experience. We can do it very quickly and easily, and the time to establish a place to go is now, not once the panic ensues
Yeah.
and things become very chaotic. And transferring ownership might even become difficult because the first people that are going to shut down are going to be government offices, right? It's going to
Right.
be the counties in charge of recording the transfer of ownership from owner A to owner B. They're going to shut down, and it's going to be very difficult to make that happen. So we would certainly encourage people to get their ducks in a row in advance.
Bob, I want to come to you in just a second, but you just tweaked me there, Rick, with regards to eminent domain. So, Glenn Beck has a ranch that is surrounded by federal property, like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of acres. And he did a story where he interviewed some people that were in a similar type of situation, and the government used eminent domain and said, "Hey, we're turning this into, a green zone, and here's your money, get out," sort of thing. So the prospect of, uh, government overreach, especially if the shit really does hit the fan, is a prospect as well. So, okay, well, you want to take my house in the city? I've still got this lot in the middle of nowhere with my trailer on it, and my fishing rod, and good times. So, Bob, we've worked together a number of projects. Surviving Man, good friends with Don Mann, both of us. Awesome TV show. Cindy and I, we host Surviving Man Aftermath. Uh,
Yep. Look.
before I forget, Bob, actually, Rick. So, speaking of paperwork, after this, we can get things going on you adopting me, right? We get the paperwork going on that.
I thought we'd already done that.
I missed the memo. Thank you, Dad. Okay, sorry, Bob. So, tell me about your thoughts, your vision for this TV show, Fortress.
Well, thanks for having me on, Chris and Rick. Can't wait to work with you with Land of Land, Land of Land. I'm the president of American Stories. We produce 15 different TV shows in climbing. We distribute worldwide. So we distribute all cable outlets, satellite outlets, you name it. We have massive, massive distribution. And our whole concept of our shows is inspiring people, educating people, learning things, and having them feel better. So that's the nature of American Story shows. We have shows in the military space, the law enforcement space, sports, business, and lifestyle. So Fortress. Well, Chris, after you were hosting Surviving Man Aftermath, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy knows everything.
No, no
Literally,
thanks.
seemingly. And it was amazing watching you talk 1 second about hunting, another second about weapons platforms, another second, you're talking about vulnerabilities on computer systems and zero-day exploits. I'm going, holy crap. And then you emailed me and said, how about a show where you could transform any type of a situation that had risk appended to it into a far safer situation, whether it's operational security issues, personal security issues, issues about a house, a home, a business. And one of my partners in American Stories, a strategic partner, is Kevin Harrington. He's the Shark Tank guy. He invented the infomercial, and he taught me this lesson: always show the magical transformation. Show the start, show the progress, show the end result. And this Fortress is all about the magical transformation. And I'll tell you what, the things we're going to show on this are going to blow people away. They will be shocked in a good way.
Right. I would add that when we tell people to be prepared, we're not spreading fear porn.
No,
We tell people to
no.
prepare for what the most likely emergency may be. So for you and I, Bob, down here in the southeast in Florida, that's hurricanes. That's
Yep.
something that we should be prepared for. We should be prepared to go weeks without power, or even after Charlie, months without power. So that means everything from
That's why you brought in energy into one
correct.
of my shows.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
But you got to have a power source to keep your food from spoiling. You've got to have extra food with a long shelf life. You've got to have clean water. When Matthew went through here on the East Coast in 2017, 2015, it burst a sewer main beside a water main in Ormond Beach, and there was no water for 3 weeks because the sewage ran into the water treatment stuff and caused chaos.
Yikes.
Right. So I mean, as well as I do from hurricanes, it sucks not having power. It sucks even more not having water. Like
Yeah, it does.
it's
AC
really
is kind of a tough one too, man. When it's 95 degrees outside in August and you don't have power and you don't have AC, I mean, but I mean, what Rick has been developing his solution in terms of the ability to acquire land anywhere, seemingly in the country, under quickly, bang. I mean, that's why, Chris, I think you suggested the first people we talked to is Rick with his company.
in a perfect world, people would have somewhere to go to bug out to where it's not too peoply, as my wife would say. It, but again, we're back to budget, right? A lot of people can't afford that second property, that second home that's
Yep.
maybe out in the middle of nowhere sort of thing. So from prior discussions with Rick, somewhere around half of his properties are remote locations, right, Rick? Like they're not in suburbia.
Right. We have a wide variety. Some of our properties are fairly remote in Nevada and New Mexico and northern Maine. And some of our properties are sort of away from the coasts to the extent you're concerned. Might be hurricanes or bombs coming over the coast towards Central America, the central part of America, where we've got a bunch of properties in nice communities in Arkansas and the Ozarks region. Um, But it's really important to note that you want to do things efficiently, but you also don't want to be foolish about the process. And the one of the big benefits that we are proud of is the fact that we've got more than 8,000 five-star reviews.
Wow.
So we've sold more than 10,000 properties. You got more than 8,000 five-star reviews, so people can trust us. And so there's not a lot of risk from our perspective owning a hard asset that's certainly not going to be likely to go down in value to the extent people start spreading out away from cities and heavily populated areas.
So I would add to that, on the concept of fortifying people in their homes, if somebody has $1,000 and they can buy a piece of land, that's a good investment because if they can escape the city and get to a remote piece of land, it's going to be safer than staying in the city. We know that. We've seen this happen when countries have collapsed. Where we really saw it was in Baghdad. So Bob and I have all kinds of mutual acquaintances, friends that are special forces operators. And the stories they tell of what happened in Baghdad when it fell, that there's really no difference between them and us as human beings. So when the shit first hits the fan, there's always this window of opportunity where you can get out of Dodge. And Bob would know this from being in Florida as well. Like when they say, okay, this hurricane's intensified, it's a Cat 5, get out of Dodge. Nobody leaves when they issue that warning. It's 12 hours, 24 hours, 2 days later when they realize, holy crap, we're going to get spanked. Then they go to leave, and
Yep.
I-75 and I-95 are parking lots 3 states north. Like you can't get out at that point in time. So what happened in Baghdad essentially was there was this window of opportunity where people could essentially run for their life. Then after that, there was 48 hours of looting where the people, took everything they possibly could from other homes or businesses that weren't occupied. And by hour number 72, the streets were covered up in gangs of marauders who were, taking people hostage because human trafficking is a big thing. And we won't go deep down that rabbit hole, but they were kidnapping people and they were taking what the other people had scavenged. And then we had to send our guys in to clean that mess up. And it took two
Right.
weeks. It took us 2 weeks to clean that up. So imagine something happening here. Again, it could be a hurricane, could be
Tornado, flood,
any of the above, right?
economic issue, ATM shutting down. It's a lot.
It is. And so I want to tie this into the land for Rick. So
Yeah.
if somebody's been diligent, right? Like the prepping market was worth somewhere around 75 billion in 2017. This year it's projected to be over 500 billion. And that's not the survival market, that's the prepping market, okay? So we know that somewhere between 10 and 15% of Americans really stock up on stuff, kind of like the Mormons, right? The Mormon doctrine is to have 2 years of food at all points in time. So that's a lot, but there's a lot of regular Americans that at least have a year's worth of food stacked up now. Here's the problem. You have a home in town. We end up, the rule of law goes out the window because of something like Venezuela. A great example, by the way, Rick, where the law enforcement are literally taking off their uniforms and saying, we're not going to fight for Maduro because he's a communist and he's cheating. We're going to stand with the people, sort of thing. So when that happens, and this situation has happened, while you've got power and you've got food, maybe you have guns, whatever, you kind of stand out like a sore thumb versus your neighbors who don't have that stuff. And when a large number of people come, there's nothing that you can do. You're not going to repel 100 people from your home, sort of thing. If they want what you've got, they're going to get in and they're going to get it, sort of thing. So that puts more emphasis on if we can get out of Dodge, that's the best option. And if we can get out of Dodge for a reasonable dollar value, then that's an even better option, right?
Chris, I got to tell you, the minute you introduced me to Rick and his company, I'm just thinking to myself, why wouldn't somebody get a piece of land now? I'm going, let me see. Average price $5,000. It made no sense for a person not to do it, particularly, your audience. And it just made so much sense. I mean, I was astounded. Rick, you have like 2,500 right now, different pieces of property, and like 15 states? Do I have this right?
That's correct. We actually have more than 2,500 properties in more than 15 states. And, initially started this process not so much as, seeking an emergency location that was one of the secondary considerations, but was really to hedge against inflation. It's our view
Wow.
that, the government's never going to be able to balance its budget. And as our debt is projected by the Congressional Budget Office to approach $50 trillion in the next 10 years, and investors start to say, well, that's too much debt. I demand a higher interest rate. Each successive government treasury auction increases the weighted average interest expense. And so as we approach 4 or 5% interest on $50 trillion in debt, we get to the 2 to 3 trillion dollars of interest expense, which becomes such a large percentage of our budget that we're never going to be able to balance the budget, and we're going to have to continue to print more dollars, decreasing their individual value. Add that to the place to go hunting or camping. Add that to the fact that most people don't have land in their portfolios and should diversify themselves from an asset allocation perspective. And then within those who own land, they should further diversify and say, well, I've got some land in Florida. I should also own some land in California or Texas to diversify that portion. It's like if owning international stocks, I should own some stocks in Brazil as well as some European
Yeah.
shares. And then you look at just the pride of ownership. I feel better knowing that I own land. I'm proud to own an extra piece of land that I could, talk about or gift to someone if I wanted to leave to my children or give to my father a place where he could go fishing, a couple of times a year. So, there were really no reasons why owning land didn't make sense from our perspective. And then there's a lot of interesting ancillary stuff that comes along, like the public utility wants to put in some power lines and they're willing to pay you to do so. Or we've got
Oh, that's
oil and gas
interesting.
leases, oil and gas leases, popped up. We've got solar leases that have popped up. We've got, the neighbor wants to expand their property. You've got basically a monopoly, right? When someone wants to, increase the size of their property, it's not like they can go next door to buy a pair of shoes from the competing shoe salesman. They have to buy it from you because you're the only one that has the adjacent property where they can put in a swimming pool or
Yeah.
tennis court or have some extra elbow room. So, from our perspective, it's the smartest, most comfortable thing that we can do, and we have a very ethical, competent team in place. I've never been more comfortable at any point in my career than I am right now.
Well, I tell you what, Chris, that's why you wanted these guys in Fortress, man. What were you thinking?
Well, listen, I can answer your question. Why wouldn't somebody buy land like this? Because people don't know what they don't know. I don't know what I don't know. Todd
Wow.
Callender doesn't know what he doesn't know. And when Rick came on and we were discussing bug out options from as little as $150 a month to the Taj Mahal and everything in between, my personal inbox at Survival Dispatch blew up from people saying, we've never heard of such a thing. Buy a parcel of land for $1,000. Is this real? And I would personally answer them back and say, yeah, this is real. You can pay for it on a credit card, like Rick mentioned. So it's really it's a visibility thing, right? Again, people don't know what they don't know. And I learn something new every day. When we first talked to Rick and his team, I was like, holy crap, like what a great solution for our vertical. Our focus is
Right.
survival and prepping, right? We're not financial wizards or anything along those lines. But what I was getting at with the value proposition from Rick as it appeals to us and our audience. Okay, so you buy a piece of land, $1,000 to $5,000, let's say, and next year you have a little bit more disposable property. You go buy an RV from our friends at Camping World, and you put an RV on the piece of property, right? So
Yep.
I like how Rick in another segment mentioned to me, he said, the land has utility. And I wasn't sure what he meant when he first said that. And then he went on to explain, well, you want to get away for the weekend, you can go to this piece of land, whether you've got a tent pitched, a home built or a trailer house,
Right.
go fishing, hunting, hiking in the woods for the weekend, and that's the utility piece of it, right? But I also, again, back to the eating an elephant one bite at a time. Okay, so I buy the piece of land and then I put a trailer or something on it. Then the next thing I do is I put a drive under on it so that the elements don't destroy my trailer. And you can just keep doing it in bite-sized chunks, but you have somewhere safe to go, which 83% of Americans don't have that live in urban centers. So it's a
Yep.
better option. It's you should fortify your home in town no matter what, because I've been broken into. I've had my office broken into and I've had homes broken into. And when my business was broken into, they stole millions of dollars of Sun Microsystems equipment. It was a very sophisticated hit. They knew that we were getting this big delivery. They came in through the roofing system. They cut a hole in the roof and got everything together. And then they drove through the front door and window to get everything out. But they used their time up top where there was no security system to buy them time to do what they wanted to do, right? So when the cops showed up for that one, they said to me, you need to have security cameras, and on top of your security cameras, double them with a bunch of fake security cameras because people can't tell the difference. And they gave me this whole list of things for target hardening. And we're going back to 2001. So this is a few years ago. And it stuck with me. I had a gun stolen out of my truck at the previous place we owned here in Ormond Beach. And when the cop showed up, I won't tell the whole story, but what he basically said is he said, I don't see any lights on this side of your home in your driveway. He said, when I drive through your neighborhood, this is the historic district of Ormond Beach. He said, I can tell everybody who's been broken into because their entire yard is flooded with lights at night. And I thought that kind of stuck with me as well. So from a fortification perspective, if you take your home, Bob, and you put things like robolinis under the windows, the little palm trees that have 4-inch needles on them full of poison that will go through denim, leather, whatever. If you put robolinis under the windows, you fortify your door, you have lights, you have security cameras, you have a sign that says you have a security camera. You've removed any landscaping in the front of your property where somebody could hide when maybe the cops drive by or a neighbor drops by. The bad guys
Hey,
look at it and go,
that sounds like a show, Chris.
yeah, well, the bad guys are going to look at your place, Bob, and then look at the place next door that has none of that.
Right.
They're going to go, yeah, well, I think we're going to rob this place instead. And we don't
Right.
want people's neighbors to get robbed, but the fact of the matter is target hardening works, period, full stop. And the
And
other,
I tell you what, Chris, I just got to throw this in here. This is why I thought your concept was so brilliant, because you're talking about hardening not just of properties and buildings and things. You're talking about hardening people, getting them prepared, whether it's self-defense, learning how to fire, non-lethal, lethal, or whatever. That's what I thought so brilliant about the upcoming show.
there's a quote from Sun Tzu that's widely used in our community, and it says, people never rise to the occasion, they fall to their level of training. So working with Don Mann, how he
Yep,
preaches situational awareness, right? So
100%.
you're at home, you're watching TV, having dinner, whatever the case may be, you're in condition white. You're not stressed about anything. You're not looking over your shoulder because something bad's going to happen, right? But when you leave the house, at a minimum, you should be in condition yellow, kind of paying attention, right? Like you don't want to run red lights and, get in a wreck, those sort of things. And the next level above that would be, man, something doesn't quite feel right. We are the only uh, living creatures on this planet who will ignore their gut instinct that says, man, there's danger ahead. You've got to know from being in your business, Bob, how many times have you seen people recount a bad situation where they said, something told me it just didn't feel right. And they ignore
Yep.
they win, and next thing you know, they're robbed, murdered, raped, whatever the case may be. So just to reel this back in on the individual side, most people go into condition black. So these conditions are from Colonel Jeff Cooper. He's a super well-known military guy, survivalist prepper, and he came out with these different conditions. So white, yellow, orange, red, black. So black is what happens to most people when they're confronted with sudden violence. They just freeze. And it doesn't even have to be sudden violence. It could be sudden emergency sort of thing, right? So if we accept the premise that human beings never rise to the occasion, they fall to their level of training, It means that your training has to be what's called stress inoculation. So, in other words, you know this, Bob, I train 5 days a week with SBR, short barrel rifles. And sometimes it's live fire, sometimes it's a training rifle like the one behind me that's a CO2 powered rifle. We had a wicked rainstorm last week, Bob, on this side of the state. And I went out in the pouring rain with that training rifle and put 480 rounds downrange, sprint 20 yards, do an exercise, shoot. Sprint 20 yards, do another exercise, shoot. 45 minutes nonstop, 480 rounds. Heart rate never went below 140 beats per minute. And I've been doing this for years. So, and as you know, I'm blind in my left eye. I could close my right eye and shoot proficiently these days because I practice so much. And that's actually Carl Cottle. You know Carl Cottle from
Yep.
the pneumatic rifles? He taught me to do that. He said, put a blindfold on and go out and train and see what happens when you have to use the rest of your senses.
Well,
And
that's why, when we were talking about Fortress, you were obviously, I mean, I don't know of anybody who is more prepared or doesn't have a plan. Some people don't shit without a plan. You have the plan for each particular scenario, and that's kind of the whole play. And then when you suggested we do something where literally we cast someone to be the recipient of a $5,000 piece of land, which
yeah,
they can choose from Land of Land for our show, I said, I'm all in. Done deal. Done deal. I hope I didn't bury the lead there, but wow.
well, no, it's just I'd been mulling this over for a while. I mean, I work in the survival prepping industry and gun aficionado for many years, gun owners for Trump, you know. There's another adage, and you know me, Bob, I'm bad for adages, but if you fail the plan, you plan to fail. It's
Yeah.
that simple. Nothing ever goes 100% according to plan, but there's a really interesting set of card games. Rick's seen them before called Conflicted, okay? And the couple who invented this card game, I think they got a dozen different decks. The reason they did it was so people could get mental reps considering bad situations, SHTF situations, right? Lo and behold, what they discovered in the end, it actually is a morality test. So if you sit down with people and you play the game, you'll find out pretty quickly where their morals are. So they bought a 338-acre ranch in North Idaho, and the closest town 30 minutes away. They were sitting down with a neighbor, Bob, and the neighbor said, what do y'all do for work? And here's some irony for you. They said, well, we made a lot of money in commercial real estate, and now we have this game called Conflicted. Would you like to play? And the guy's like, yeah, sure, I'd like to play. What's the premise? So they told him, this is to get cycles on how you should be prepared for SHTF. And uh, he said that's not applicable to me. And the husband was like, what do you mean it's not applicable to you? He said, if the shit really hits the fan like that, I'm just going to take whatever I want at gunpoint. It was the last time he was ever invited into their home. Like it's
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
great
That's
in,
interesting.
great indicator of morals or lack thereof. But back to the fortification for individuals, the weakest part of anybody's plan or situation is their physical conditioning. So if most Americans work 15 miles from home, anybody in reasonable shape should be able to walk 15 miles a day and get home. And they should have a get home bag in their vehicle at all times. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people they can't do that. So we don't get on our high horse and preach to people and say, you should, exercise this way and eat this way. All we do is we tell people, look, just do whatever activity that's within your comfort level. Human beings were not meant to be stationary, and after you do it for 30 days, it's in your psyche, and after 90 days, it's an ingrained habit, and it's Kaizen, right? The Japanese continuous
Yeah.
improvement. And you don't have to be a world-class athlete to do any of this stuff, but it puts you a measure above your, other people just by virtue of making an effort, number one. Number two, train some more, get some training from somebody like Don Mann, Mike Glover. These guys are preeminent subject matter experts. Stock up on the food. It's all the regular things that we discuss. But unfortunately, in today's society, everybody's caught up with this weapon of mass distraction instead of paying attention to what really matters.
Yeah. 100%. So, hey, you want to talk about what we're going to do in terms of the casting for the I think episode number 1, the premiere, which is going to be on in 2025. It's going to be first quarter. Fortress. I love the protect, survive, thrive. I think that's like so perfect. And if you don't mind, I could describe the actual casting if that makes sense.
Hey, that's your wheelhouse, Bob.
Okay, so folks, check this out. What we love doing with American Stories is we like casting real people in real situations. That's what we do. When we have people that are involved with Surviving Man, which is all about training with a SEAL Team 6 superstar, and then training for a mission, going through selection process, we want real people. So we're literally, I think we're starting live right now. So at the end of this recording, you can go to where Chris is going to tell you, and you can register to be considered as the person that is going to be filmed picking his land of land property, getting his property. It's all on the house with Rick. He's provided this on the house. They're going to pick their property in one of these many states, and we're going to film them going to the property and seeing it. And that is going to be playing on Fortress, which, by the way, will be in households covering almost 150 million people. So I tell you what, that's going to be incredible. So that's we're casting. It starts literally right after I shut up.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but Pursuit TV alone by itself, isn't there something like 100 million Americans
Yeah,
who have that?
exactly. So Fortress is going to be on Pursuit Network, which is 35% of all households. That's 100 million people. And then after it runs there, it'll be on Anthem Entertainment, another gigantic number of people. And then Fortress will be on Outdoor Action TV. That's another one. So, we like spreading the message, and it's going to be exciting. I mean, if you have Comcast, if you've got Dish, if you've got DirecTV, if you got a host of all these other cable outfits, you'll see our show.
Yeah, that's good for the ego, by the way. To be in front of that many people.
Well, I tell you what, by the way, if I'm hearing this, I suggest don't even wait. Get your piece of property now and maybe win a piece of property as well. I'd get property. That's a no-brainer. But then if you want to win, be on a TV show, national in front of it's gonna be great. It'll be awesome. It's like Survivor, the show.
I'll add one thing too that
Shoot.
just because we've done shows with you and Don Man stuff in particular, this is real reality TV.
Oh yeah,
There is zero scripting on anything. And
correct.
Rick, I'll tell you a funny story.
Please.
Bob's a slave driver, okay? So the first day of Surviving Man season 3, it started with 2 shows a day on the Sunday. We couldn't wait till Monday. We had to get it going Sunday sort of thing. And this frog strangler come out of nowhere. That's a big storm in Texas terms, right? I mean, Bob will tell you the rain was coming sideways. We were on a
Sideways.
billion. Everybody was drenched. I mean, it was brutal. And finally, Don Man says, "All right, y'all, we're ready to go." And everybody's kind of looking at each other. And so he led them down this path. And Rick, as he's leading them down the path, there's water moccasins coming out everywhere because,
Wow.
extremely poisonous snakes that we have here in Florida. And that didn't phase Don Man in the slice. He's like, "Here we go." And it is true reality TV.
It's real.
Yeah,
It's real.
it's as real as it gets. And Cindy and I have both done some other stuff before that was very, very scripted.
I can't
Not your
wait. I
stuff.
got to say, Chris, I cannot wait to be filming that person who's won the casting, picking their piece of land. The biggest problem they're going to have is there's so many incredible selections. I mean, we're going to tell them, listen, do a pre-process before so you at least narrow down, what you want to pick, but don't pick it yet until we have the camera on them. And then the next thing is going to be fantastic is watching them come out to see their property. Magic.
Hey, I want to add one more thing before we wrap up here. Our mutual friend Kyle Reyes owns Law Enforcement Today, like 75 million impressions a month, sort of thing. Has a show on your network, Real Man TV. I spoke to him. I mentioned all the benefits of Rick's offerings. And as you know, he's originally from Connecticut. He has a home in Connecticut, but just bought a home here in Florida near Jacksonville. And Rick, he's a busy guy, but he has every intention of reaching out to you because here's another usage for Rick's land. Kyle wants to have waypoints. So if he gets stuck in Connecticut and his family's here in Florida and he needs to get home, he wants to know that he can go from Connecticut, to say Jersey to, maybe Virginia the next day, South Carolina, Florida sort of thing. And, he's got the money to do it. He can afford that, especially with Rick's prices. But waypoints is another interesting aspect of this.
Without question. It's going to be a thrilling ride, gentlemen. I'm really excited to take it with you.
All right.
Well, Bob, we'll have a link below, right, where people can go for the casting call and
Yep.
they can get in line to potentially be the feature on one of the episodes. And let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. The people who get chosen to be on the TV show, one of them is going to win a piece of land.
That's correct. Well, there's
Okay.
going to be one person picked to be on the TV show and they get their land. And I would tell everybody, listen, this, don't go, I want to think of it. Just do it. Go there because at least at worst case, you're going to go to the casting site. You're going to see what this is was all about. You have a whole section on Land of Land. Just go, get yourself in. Don't, take a swing at the bat, folks. Take a swing at the bat. Okay.
Can we share the location for
Yeah, I
the
think you have it, right? You have the website
well,
address?
yeah, absolutely. The old front site, Prairie Fire now.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Prairie Fire is where you're going to be also filmed at Prairie Fire as well with Mr. Chris Heaven. Woo-wee.
Well, Don Mann and all kinds of people smarter than me.
Oh, yeah.
But
Sheriff
season one
Lambert's going
of
to be there. We're going to all sorts of people.
yeah, season one of Surviving Man was filmed when it was called Front Sight, correct?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
Rick, I don't know if anybody's brought you up to speed on this, but this is by far the most advanced training facility for private individuals as well as people in agencies west of the Mississippi. It's phenomenal. And the people who get to go there for the show are going to be super excited. I mean, if you're into survival, you're into shooting guns and all that kind of stuff, this is the place to go for sure.
I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Likewise.
Well,
All right.
great, Chris.
We'll have links down below for everything. You can go to
Yep.
any survival dispatch video, by the way, and at the top of every video description is buy a bug out parcel of land for as little as $1,000 and a link to Land of Land. So we even put that before the video description. So any survival dispatch video on any platform out there, you can find a link to Rick. And anybody who's watching this video will have links down below where you can potentially become a cast member and win a parcel of land. Other than that, appreciate your time. Appreciate your insight. God bless America.
You got it, baby.
Gentlemen, thanks for your time.
Thank you.